Can maybe tell a little bit about your journey? Um, you made this decision to move from Mahajan to Vidur CARPL. What were some of the early signs that made you believe that AI in radiology was not just a interesting application, but was a large enough opportunity for you to build something in?
I am one of those very privileged people where I had the opportunity to uh, build Carpal as an idea for a customer that was also me. Right. So before starting Carpal, I was running a company called Mahajan Imaging. It is like one of the biggest radiology provider companies in India. And 2015-16 was the time when when the first wave of doctor replacement is what I call it started, right? Ki some log keh rahe the, oh, AI have replaced doctors and we should stop training doctors and all that. But so at that time, we started just out of interest, like started working with all of the world's major AI developers. मतलब हमने Alibaba को भी नहीं छोड़ा. The China wala Alibaba, even they were building AI for radiology. So we started working with everyone, and then it hit us that everybody is building AI, nobody is using it too, right? So we started building tools for us only to use these AI solutions. So it came from a point of extreme privilege because normally ना लोग अपना पहला customer ढूंढते रह जाते हैं, right? मतलब design partner, whatever you could call them, different things. But we were ourselves our first customer. So we derived a lot of validation from that. The problem that we fell into was the market was going to be global. And India ka healthcare IT stack is non-existent, right? Compared to the West or the US, Europe, like even Southeast Asia, Australia, etc. But the initial idea validation was very much there. Like the name Carpal is a derivative of the name of our research division, which was called Caring, the Center for Advanced Research in Imaging, Neurosciences, and Genomics. Caring created the Caring Analytics platform, which was nothing. It was just like, some databases and dashboards. इसको हमने कार्पल होते हैं. And for 2 years, we remained within margin imaging as a research division. So that's what I mean, right? We had this extreme privilege game at the time mid 2021 and 2021 when we knew that okay, this is now worth becoming a viable business was when we moved it out and we raised our investment and all that. So, but very important that get for you to get as close to your first customer or first users as you can. And we're very, very lucky in that regard.
Understood. No, I think a lot of us would be facing similar challenges in finding that customer spike, which gives us the promotion. I think another thing that's been very interesting to me is that both of you operate in very different domains. But there's one thing that's very common, that technology has been a very core part of the offering that you have. And at the same time, in the last half a decade or so, we've seen a lot of technology change happening. So would love to understand that in the last couple of years, how has that technology changed, reshaped the way you think about your product, what the strategy around it?
Go. Sure. Yeah, it's big. So I think I touched on it a little bit. One very important thing that happened is, as technology evolves, what you have built kind of expands vertically and horizontally. So what happened to us, I think in the first year, in the first 2 years, we had one product for automotive, which had one main purpose, which was just being able to interact with the particular product in AI. This is what we started with in the very beginning. Today, we are at a situation where we're not just, able to do a lot more with, let's say, a bug, but now we're doing training, manufacturing services, and all of this stuff. So what happened is AI allowed us different ways of interacting with XR. That's one. And different ways to build XR as well. Like now we're no longer just interacting with it, with our fingers, like, or with our phones as it was initially, right? Now we have gesture based, now we have voice based. So it kind of combines different pieces of technology and we ended up becoming an XR AI bomb. And that opened up so many opportunities for us. And yeah, building those use cases is something that technology, enabled us to do over here. From the beginning.
Very interesting.
In our world, so as I said, right, we are a marketplace of AI solutions. So the thesis we have been betting on is that it will become easier and easier to build AI. And thereby, currently, if there are, say, 200 people companies, that will go to 20 people companies, they'll probably go to 2 people companies. So for us, ChatGPT coming to the fore, Google releasing a bunch of foundational models, GD Healthcare releasing foundational models, etc., all plays into that thesis where if we are able to move fast enough and we are able to become the default user interface for the end doctor, all of these companies, like even if OpenAI tomorrow starts building radiology AI solutions, the pipeline would remain us. So pretty cool to see, like, something that we imagined play out. That said, it also becomes easier for everybody else to do what you're doing. Honestly, and I'm not a technologist, I'm not a doctor, but I don't think tech is a mode anymore. We're talking about patents and IP and this, that, and the other. By the time your patent is granted, you're like, so defensibility of patents, maybe there's a problem to be solved there, like, platform for defensibility of patents. Is this even going to be defensible in the future? But I don't see tech as a moat. I see contracting as a moat, which is something chat. So what are the things that ChatGPT cannot bring, right? Are essentially things we think about a lot. बाकी सब कुछ तो वो कर ही देगा.
No, completely fair. I think at it's done both things. It's opened up a lot of new opportunities for a lot of companies, but at the same time, the speed at which things change has become very fast. And because we're talking about this, of course, Saharsh, the investor perspective, be great to hear. When you evaluating companies, how do you distinguish noise from proof of technology and something that will last?
Sure. I think we could touch on it as well, right? So how we as investors, so our main job is to cut and filter the noise and figure out startups which are interesting, which is good, which I would not call it a competitive advantage of sorts, but which would have some sort of durability. How we look at as investors is under 3 points, right? The first two can be in very early stages. The third one is slightly later stage when you have some customer traction. The first is that the product improves, right? Especially the trend improves with either scale or time. What do I mean by that? Uh, Let me try to give you an example. Uh, a company I invested in long back was called Battery Smart, right? They're into battery swapping. For started with three-wheelers, e-rickshaws essentially, and now doing it for two-wheelers as well. That's a long thesis, but what helped them with scale, right? If you start battery swapping, right, and you swap EV batteries over a period of time, you have, let's say, for security purposes, a SIM within your battery that you're swapping, and you swap it like a petrol pump. You over time see data of movement of e-rickshaws, let's say in a geography like Gurgaon. Then you know best which is the best suited location for you to most efficiently open the next thing of a petrol pump, right? Or the next swapping station. And that sort of became their data moat over a period of time. They did not have it when they started. But that became a moat over a period of time where no one else in the market, the geography they existed in, would take the market away from them because they were most efficient. Right? That's one. Second would be you are very deeply embedded with your customer. What does that mean? As Vidur pointed out, and as I know from Metadome as well, uh, you cannot be replaced so easily, right? Once you are integrated within a system, right, it's very difficult. And so was for CARPL as well. So was uh, for a piece of example to understand. There is companies I talked about earlier, Squatch Stack, right? voice AI solution. Now we all know AI, voice AI, even voice AI, they've cleared what is called a Turing test, which you are human, you cannot distinguish it from a human and whatnot. But there are still edge cases, right? Wherein a human has to intervene. So how they're deeply embedded is their full stack. They take care of all instincts. No matter if a human is needed, they still run a BPO, a human-centered BPO, and they still have their voice AI stack as well. So they can cater to all the use cases, edge cases that are there. Right? Huh? So these are the two. The third is some customer interaction. Some customer love a change in behavior that you start seeing. I know for Meta because I worked with you guys very closely. Uh, and it's similar for sports tech as well. So what you start seeing and what Vidur also hinted was contract. Right? Once you capture a contract, you see, let's say, starts with a $10,000 value. Does that increase over a period of time? Right? Is the use case of AI increasing? Is the use case of voice increasing? So much so that in Squad we had seen within 2 months, customer who was onboarded from a $10,000 ACP or contract value, they came to $1 billion mix. Right? That's that's a scale of I don't know how many X within 2 months. Right. So those are the sort of initial customer behaviors. If you have traction, those are the three things that I think that when I look at it down to be as an investor. Okay.
Right. Well, that's super helpful, and I'm sure it gives us some food of thought in terms of how we're thinking about our solutions as well. Now, my next set of questions are like a necessity and an EDC balance, so more surprises there. What we talk about is fundraising. Uh, Within deep tech, we've seen that in India, fundraising has been quite challenging. So, can you walk us through your journey with fundraising? And in that process, what part of it seemed the most challenging to you? Was it landing the first conversation, was convincing the VC on the technology, or getting them to that point where they can underwrite a long-term risk?
So, my fundraising journey actually started when we moved out of Mahajan meeting. We were suddenly on our own, right? And I had this very strong funda ki kaise nahi lene hain, somebody said, because I didn't want any kind of family involvement. We wanted to run it as a professional startup scaling, etc. So, initially reached out to a bunch of agents. Luckily, there were enough people who were involved in the ideation phase, right? So that's a very cool thing. Generally, if you go to people and you ask for money and you tell them कि मैं ये कर रहा हूँ, please मुझे पैसे दो. You have kind of reached a point, and uh, they judge you for what you are. Alternately, if you start engaging with folks while you're maybe still ideating, you haven't quit your job, or you haven't started building the product, but you start engaging with the angel investor community, and now there is, I feel, a very good angel investor community. A lot of people have bought exits, etc., from the big IPOs that has happened. So make them part of the journey. Let them see how you evolve over 3 to 6 months, and that builds people's conviction in giving you money. So that was the first thing that we did. We raised money from all strategic angels, like the Pino, uncle, auntie kind of people. Lucky, right? But Lena to live, that's the best thing. Like my dad built his business on Mamaji's money that he never gave both. So, uh, so that was that. Then we raised our seed round, which was the first, like, kind of, legit fundraise of, in fact, we've done only the German and the seed round till now. $4 million from Stellaris in Bangalore. That process was very interesting. Yeah. Why was it very interesting? I must have spoken to at least 35 uh, funds. Right. And I tell you the story, Arik fam. So Stellaris, I was connected to Stellaris by one of my angel investors. They get a call. It was a 15-minute call. बहुत ही घटिया सा call. Right? वो बंदे को समझ ही नहीं आया कि हम करते क्या है. ना मैं समझा पाया. He was on his phone walking around. It was very not good order. तो मैंने कहा ठीक है यार. नाम मेरी सुना चलता है. वो founders की आड़ like होती है. So then suddenly there's other guy, Santan, who's like who manages us for Stellantis now, he reached out to me on LinkedIn. Yeah, I've seen your company, very interesting, this, that. So I told him, I said, I've already spoken to your team and they have said they will connect later. So, thank you very much. So he persisted. I believe you have spoken to the healthcare team. I think you are more amenable to the deep tech and SaaS team, which is what I do. And these are two reasons why, right? So I would still appreciate if you can take out 15 minutes of your life. That first conversation, 3 weeks later, we like the term sheet. Like these guys moved at warp speed. See, because the ultimate is now, if you are a good founder, any VC, because VCs will only get one shot at you, right? Or two at the max, right? So they will move really, really fast if it is a high conviction kind of situation. And that was my journey. But uske baad, तो there are many ups and downs, and all of that keeps happening. But he again very lucky है, मतलब वो स्टेलाइज अगर वो ना अपन देगा लिंक्डइन आता या ना मैं उसे रिप्लाई करता, आई डोंट नो, मे बी मैं यहाँ ना बैठ होता. But I think so that has been my journey, very. And so getting intros, etc., is, I don't think it's any, like, literally Chiratae, one of the most amazing funds in the country, is calling us on here, right, to meet with them and all. So I don't think intros, etc., are a challenge. It's just धंधा ग्रो करना चाहिए. वो क्या 3.7x, 9x, 10x जो लिखा है वो होना चाहिए. That's so.
No, absolutely bad. And I think it is a relationship similar to how when there is relationships with customers, it has to be there's a lot of trust both ways that goes. Kartik, would love to hear your perspective on what role does a CTO play during the fundraising process?
Yeah, then there is a role. There's a very important role actually. I think the more deep tech your company is, I think the bigger the role gets actually. So two things majorly that I can think of which were the most important. Number one is of course to prove the innovation that you built. I think that's something that comes, it's coming straight from the origin. So it's very easy for VCs to hear it and to understand it, but it's coming from somebody who has been at the center of building it. So to prove the innovation, that's one very important role that I had to take when we raised funds. And the second is to also prove the fact that it can actually be made, right? Because you have to, it's also grounded in reality, right? Like you can say that I'll build XYZ, but how? Like it isn't taste of it. Like where does the reality overlap with what you're saying is innovative? So I think that is another thing. And I think if you combine these two, you effectively, like in that meeting, like when you're across the board, you're talking to a bunch of investors. I think as a CTO, you end up becoming a consultant to the investors, so to speak, because you have to kind of bring out the truth in that situation. You have to kind of bridge the gap because in a lot of these meetings, I might be the only one who is deep tech, right? But who is it from the investor side who can actually like maybe have a conversation with you about those things, right? So it's important for me to kind of play a mediating role where we're also talking about what can be done, but we're also talking about what's innovative in it. So it kind of bridges the conversation of everything that we're talking about. So yeah, that's one way.
Got it. No, makes a lot of sense. I think it would be fair to say that proof lies in the pudding and you're the chef.
Ah, one of the chefs.
Sash, we've been looking at a lot of tech tech companies through Sonic, and of course, in the last 6, 7 years, you did a lot of companies as well. So, would love to understand what are the 2 to 3 things you expect early stage founders to showcase or demonstrate that help you build that commission into the solution.
Uh, so I think first is trust. I think you have to establish some sort of trust relationship with these things that you have, right? And there are softer points which you have to have as a founder. I would rather not touch on them, but rather touch on the more objective points which you can add, right? Which Kartik has to touch on, right? Which is technology. As a deep tech founder, you have to show that your technology actually works. Right? Think of, if we're thinking in terms of readiness, think of one picture we see where you are, let's say, about TLN6, for example, right? If we talk to very technical talks, that's one where you have to showcase. And Kartik is very right that most VCs understand 80% of what you're bringing, just 80%. They don't understand the 100% of it. The CTO helps in bridge that gap and helps you understand that this is the technology. Now, if it works or not, that is still to be decided. Right? Uh, Example. Okay, so can we think of an example? Let me bring back one story. Right? It can be as early as stating that the voice AI is equivalent to human or is indistinguishable from a human. Right? That will be one of the proof points. Right? A very late stage proof point can also be it's showing you better conversions than a human, right? 1.3x conversions that went up pretty madly. That's number one, right? Number two ties up to the second point which I highlighted earlier, which is you have to be deeply embedded, right? So what do you have to show? You cannot be deeply embedded, but you just start, right? You just start your company. So we look for founders who have deep domain insights. Okay? Let's say, let's take the example of Vidur first, right? Uh, Vidur came as a customer himself, so he understood the radiology space in and out. As a doctor, there's a radiology. Within radiology, he had the most amount of insights anyone can have in this space. Pretty nice, right? That's number two. Third would be there is some traction, and we start seeing some customer love towards the product, which again ties with customer. Uh, it is showcased in the early customer with familiar retention, through expansion of your contract value, or just retention of your host that you have, or retention of the number of customers that you have over a period of scanning over a cohort, right? So those three would be positive points.
The second point that you said, Saharsh, was very interesting. Like when you have, deep understanding in that particular field, and that's something that you look at, I think it's very important. I think that's a very good signifier that the company or the startup got naturally, right? Like I think it's a very cool way of looking at it because that's what happened with a lot of us as well. Like if you're into a similar sphere, you will kind of end up picking a company in that space, and that's how you know that a lot of your instincts will actually help in the long run.
Yeah, I try not to use the word of founder market fit. And because we have seen consultant builds large companies as well. Let's say urban company will build like consultants, right? So I like to look at it as deep domain insights, right? Uh, so yeah, that's not a founder market fit exactly if you put it and compare it on paper, but being domain insight is really what we look for.
Absolutely. And I think that also helps you distinguish between the points that are worth solving for, probably not worth solving for. I think we spoke about the fundraising and some of the challenges that come with that. But in early stage founder business challenges across the board, right? It's a constant firefight process. So would love for you guys to talk about the challenges that you guys faced in the first 12 to 18 months and how did you navigate those challenges? Either one of you can start.
You can go first. So two truthful answers, right? Biggest challenge is पैसे खत्म हो जाते हैं, right? Like money is a finite thing in life. So, we have now we are going through like our third phase of paise khatam hue hain. So I think it's yeah, that is the challenge. You have to deal with it. You have to make more money or orderly kind of organization mentality. It screws with your head यार भाई तुमने क्यों बोल दिया उसको कि हम सिंगल साइन ऑन भी कर देंगे और हम लॉग इन भी कर देंगे और हाँ हमारा ईयर के है जबकि सच्ची में कुछ और है एंड ऑल दैट, या बिकॉज वो पैसे दे रहा था तो मैंने बोल दिया. So yeah, so I think those are the two very big challenges. The second one, you can either derive pleasure in solving it or you can get frustrated in solving it, right? So that and once you go into the frustrating part, people start fighting and it's a very very bad place to be in. फिर वैसे आ गए हैं, लगता है चलो ठीक ही है. So that, but that's the, I think those are at least my two biggest challenges.
That's very cool, Ma. The one I was going to talk about is the second one you mentioned. So I think it's very real, and you even mentioned that you can actually take it in your stride as well. When you're in that situation, when all right, you have to raise funds, money is a finite thing, like you said, yes, very rightly. But you can, in that situation when you have to kind of extend yourself, you might be at, let's say 10% or 20%, but you can extend to maybe 50% of whatever it might be, right? I think that's a very exciting time. In the beginning, when we did our seed round, we had to extend ourselves quite a lot. It was a lot more difficult to do it then than to do it later because we had so much more of a base to build on top of. Back then, it was like बेच ये दिया है बट बनाना पड़ेगा उसे और फिर बनाया हमने, right? So I think once you get out of that and you realize that we were actually able to do it when we were doubting it on face value in the beginning, gives you a sort of superpower, I think. Makes you realize that you can kind of take any challenge on now. Like, I think अब जब फिर पैसा आ जाता है, then you, in a lot of ways, feel like you deserved it as well. So it feels good. I think that's a very positive thing, at least the way I'm using it.
But I think the way out of it, at least the way we think about it now, is कि how, so you will not be able to deliver, right? मतलब वो अगर कार्तिक ने कर दिया मतलब hats off, but more often than not अगर आपने 10 एक्स्ट्रा चीजें कमिट कर दी उसमें से 7 आप कर पाओगे यार या 8 कर लोगे,
Which is a success.
correct, which is kind of success. But the thing is, your you have to also put yourself in the customer's shoes. Now the customer is used to buying products from GE, Philips, Siemens. उनका 2 year रिलीज साइकिल है यार. मतलब यहाँ पे हम 24 hours, 48 hours, 3 days, 6 days पे ऑपरेट कर रहे हैं. एंड वहां पे if they ask for a new feature, they ask for a customization, they are told हाँ ठीक है, this is an our 2028 roadmap, and they wait, करते हैं wait, right? So the solution lies in also setting that expectation कि ठीक है सर मैंने ना आपको ये बोल दिया था, but सच्ची में, and that is where the relationship and trust etc comes on board. And you like, I have done it many times where I have like flown to a customer halfway across the world for a day just to tell them कि यार देखो चीज भी कर देंगे, so मैं आ गया हूँ, आपको मेरे साथ ये करना है, रख दे. Right, and they take it well, yeah, because they also understand we are operating in a world of unknowns. मतलब there was somebody here controlling like बड़ी Ola for satellites. यार मतलब come on, ठीक है 2 हफ्ते एक्स्ट्रा लग गए तुम्हें एक फीचर देने में, चलता है. So that's how we rationalize it.
Saharsh, how much was that you aware of?
So correct. Can be a, so even that if you see good investors came to door, yeah, over time talking to customers, doing due diligence, no one delivers 100%. 80% okay, that's a huge success. It's a huge success. They do it. Okay. But one thing which distinguishes good teams from not so good teams is that they know the rules, right? That's what we usually see. बाकी तो compared to whatever sense, right? Yeah, that is my take on that.
And I think what's really interesting is that something that you guys succeeded on is that when the stress increases or but you sold something that is yet to be realized in that sense, there's a lot of tension that gets built within the team. It's also very important to find those right people to build with to navigate those interpersonal relationships. It's how would also love to hear that when you work with founders, How did you see some of them best navigate these challenges?
Okay, so 80%, right? 80% is the above, right? And that differentiates good founders from that, right? And from experience, right? Uh, what I can say is especially in the tech, right? Companies which are high in technology and need a high end product for customers to, let's say, sway them away from, let's say, Hadoop, right? Or from a Seals or Felix, right? So होता क्या है कि usually the founders are very much focused on and they're good founders, they're focused on sales, right? Many founders at times focus on tech, right? कि हमारा tech सबसे अच्छा है, be the best, take it down, right? But the customer hardly cares about that. Right? Customer cares about outcome. आपका outcome क्या है, right? Let's say for Pixis, for example, yeah, marketing ROAS कितना देगा? What is the ROAS? Is your ROAS better than the marketing agents, right? Or let's say for Metadome, is your sales going to be better than if we appoint a physical agency there, right? So focusing on outcomes rather than just the tech, right? And sales becomes a part of it. And if you deliver 18%, I think that's one interesting point. Second is there are a lot of challenges which you come in, and I've been found that I faced those challenges myself, right? So, and this is what we guide founders as well. If we are on board and try to help them as well, is just set up the next milestone. That's it. Don't look too far ahead like, to what we will start doing in 2027 or the 28. Just focus on the next 6 months. Your target is get to customers. Or if you are a B2C company, get 200 customers. That's it. Don't focus on anything else, right? And that you align with the North Star, the KPI that you want to build for, right? So that's number two. The third thing which I think differentiates, and this is the last one, which I feel differentiates great founders from good ones, is what I like to call capital learning efficiency, right? Uh, think of it as a ratio which is learns to burn, right? It should always be, it's a subjective call. Uh, but this ratio of learns to burn should be higher than one, where the learnings you have and you implement them, uh, they get you outcomes which are more than the burn you sort of incur in learning those things at over a period of time. And it's a software buying. It has to be analyzed from time to time. But yeah, I would say those three things I've seen in great founders that distinguish them from the ones development.
Thank you so much, Vidur, Kartik, and Saharsh.